Running from this town, don't know where I'm going. Feet off the ground, show no signs of slowing down. That's okay, that's okay. Find my way, find my way back home. I've got a plan, you don't know it. See the future, but you don't show it. That's okay, that's okay.
Hello everyone, this is Cathy Kelly and welcome to the Dingle Literary Festival. This evening I'm interviewing the amazing Michelle Dunne. Hello Michelle.
Hi everyone. Hi.
This is...
So sorry we're not in Dingle today. Actually,
I know. It would be completely lovely to be in Dingle today, but you know, at this time it's really important to remember, as we were just discussing, books and the escapism of books and getting away, escape into a good book. And I escaped into your beautiful third novel, Well, Nobody's Watching, several months ago, and I want everyone to escape into it now because it's a really amazing thriller, and thrillers written by incredible Irish women with experiences like yours are absolutely amazing. And to those of you who don't know Michelle was an Irish soldier, a peacekeeper, and now works in areas of dementia care, and is a mom, is multi-talented, and she brings all that wonderful awareness into her first novel. And so we're going to start off with this slightly all over the place go on the women talk, because you see we've had this conversation, Michelle and I, about go on the women, haven't we?
We have, and it's so important because, you know, the female characters are just, they're amazing, and they've just opened the door. I mean, for me, up until a certain point in my life, actually up until like my early 20s, I was raised on crime fiction. We had nothing, it was crime fiction. I'm actually convinced any member of my family could now get away scot-free with a number of very serious crimes. We know all the pitfalls, right? So
Me too, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So I've been raised on that. And then I hit a point where in my early 20s, a book from a different genre was thrust into my hands. And even though it was outside my comfort zone at the time, suddenly I was introduced to all of these amazing female characters that, you know, I hadn't been exposed to, I suppose, with a lot of the crime fiction that I was reading. They were all very male dominated. But suddenly I had all these women, and for me, that's what actually opened the door for me. That got my creative juices flowing, because suddenly I had all of these female characters appearing in my own head. This is how I actually started writing. This is what got me into writing from reading, was these characters started to form. And before I knew it, I had Jen Summers, I had Erin Chandler, and I had, you know, these three women in my head, and they were so powerful, I couldn't not write about them. And that's how I started writing, was because of all of these female characters that were being put out there and that I was being presented with. So yeah, go on the women.
But isn't it so amazing? I mean, people always ask me as a writer, you know, how did I get into writing? And you go through the logistical step, but it's so much more. It's a spark. It's like where the ideas come from. It's a spark. I want to say it's 1-800-IDEAS, but I don't. But, you know, where the ideas come from and how did you get in? And it's that spark spark, that wanting to create your own world. So you started, your career has been very varied. And I think that's what's so fascinating about how that's shaped your writing, because I'm a huge thriller reader. And Sue Grafton, I don't know if you've read Sue Grafton, but they say she did the A is for alibi and B is for...
Oh, yeah.
And apparently she wrote her first book because she wanted to figure out how to kill her husband. But anyway, that's beside the point. We'll discuss, killing people later. Anyway, but, women thriller writers, I think, are very, very powerful. And an enormous number of thriller readers are women. So tell me so you've written 3 books. So your first 2 books were very, very different. How did you get into writing a book with the beautiful Lindsey, who is very, very different character and is so strong and powerful, and I want a big series of this woman?
Well, do you know what? My writing took a very different direction after my first 2 books. I think somewhere along the line, I realised, it dawned on me that everything that I had read at that point about women in the defence forces seemed to be very negative. I mean, whether it was books, newspaper articles, it all just seemed, I felt like only the negative stories were being told. And for me, joining the army was one of the best decisions I've ever made. It was one of the most positive experiences for me.
What age were you when you went into the Defence Forces?
I was 18. Girl I was. But it shaped me, Cathy. Like it totally shaped the direction I took in life, I think. And working with the UN topped it. Now I know it all comes down to the people that you're surrounded with, I think. And from day one for me in the army, I was just surrounded by these fantastic people. I mean, they are second to none. So I suppose I wanted to write something to reflect that. So I started writing this book, fiction again. Now I'm no good with non-fiction, so it wasn't, my own story, but it was fiction. It was based on my experiences. And I think I was on like the second draft of that, and it wasn't where I wanted it to be. And I got a little bit of a stroke one day actually, and I just walked away and just said, done, I'm not writing anymore, all over. And I sat down with my phone for a little bit of mindless scrolling, and I came across a YouTube clip actually about service dogs. And this particular clip, they're service dogs, they're the most amazing creatures on the planet. You have to click in and you have to watch those kind of videos. But this particular clip was a guy, he was a US Army veteran, and to the naked eye, he did not look like he needed any assistance from anybody. But he was living with PTSD, and he started to describe the role that this gorgeous dog played in his life and how he was his lifeline, basically. And it was a short clip, it was like 30 seconds or so, and by the end of it, I had these 2 fully formed characters in my head, Lindsey Ryan and her service dog, Frank.
So explain a little bit about the plot, just a little bit, because we don't want to give it away. Yeah. We want people to go out, all good bookshops, kennys.ie. We want them to buy the book and follow the series through, because you're working on a series here. So just give us a little hint of what the book is about.
Okay, so it's about Corporal Lindsey Ryan. So she's a veteran of the Irish Army, and her life was changed forever while she was serving with the UN, as you know, the Irish have done for decades. So now she's back in Cork, and she has this whole new career, and she's also fighting a very, very private battle with PTSD. So her new career, she's working with the troubled youth of Cork City, and how she's choosing to deal with her PTSD is by basically throwing herself into their lives, living a very, very high-risk lifestyle herself, just putting herself in situations that she's just basically daring the world to do its worst. And she has attracted the attention of a stalker as well, which just for somebody with PTSD who sees threats everywhere anyway.
And it's hyper-vigilant on every level, yes, of course.
So it's just for her, it's trying to decipher what threats are real, what threats are not. And it's just, it is a thriller. I'm hoping it will keep you on the edge of your seat, and the ending, I'm hoping you won't see that coming.
I have to say, absolutely, and that's really how we met, because I read the book and I loved it, and I loved thrillers, and I love books that have strong female characters. And I love the way the PTSD is brought to the fore, because I mean, you talk in some of your writing, in some of your nonfiction writing, about the experiences you went through. Many years ago, I was a week in Lebanon, and I saw some of the places where you would have served. But it's one thing going over there as a sort of a tourist. It's another thing going over there, being there for 6 months, working. You talked about, being under, your campus being shelled. You're trying to be calm. You're trying to get you're medevacing people out. The helo is not going to be able to come in for several hours. So I think your experiences are so very, very powerful, and you bring that to the fore, and you bring that to the fore in the sense of the effect that has on the human psyche. That is, I think, a lot of thriller writers try to achieve, but maybe don't understand, because you've been there.
Yeah, and I think up until at the time when I served, there was no internet access in Lebanon. There were no smartphones, and people very much underestimated what was entailed in peacekeeping. I think the Irish Army are very underestimated anyway, internationally maybe, and hopefully that's getting better now. But yeah, so when I was there, we basically, nobody at home knew anything about what went on out there. And when I was getting ready to leave, the biggest concerns were, because I'm fair skinned, would I burn in the sun? And would I get, could I bring home some cheap gold, cheap perfume, because you can get all these things. And these were the things that Irish people thought of when they thought of, soldiers going off to Lebanon and other countries, the UN. But the reality is so different. I mean, within 2 days of being there, your nighttime, your sleep, everything, you start hearing like there's these booms off in the distance, and you're straight away you're like, oh. But as time goes on, you're there, and they're coming closer, and you almost become nearly accustomed to it when you're there. It's every night, it's constant, and it's gunfire, and you leave your room, you're heading for the bunker, and there's this red trace around flying over your head. And aside from all that, yeah, we were in a very active area, so we did have a lot of kind of, I suppose, hairier situations. One night in particular, we took some very, very heavy shelling. Basically, a mobile patrol set up behind us and used us as cover, so everything that came back at them hit us. And we had some injuries that night. Our camp was having huge damage to our camp. But yeah, during all of that, the army trains you quite well actually to deal with that. And for me, I was always this very naive person who thought nothing bad would ever happen to me. So as the room was shaking, and like the building I was in was hit by mortar shells, dirt was pouring in the window atop me.
And you're trying to still be, maintain your calm within the middle of all of this. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, my job at the time, I worked in the Compton, and I was on duty that night. So it was my job to let HQ know what was happening, to coordinate, to communicate with all of our outposts, see where the fire was coming from, where it was landing, who was shooting at who, what was happening, what damage was happening. And we had, as I said, we had 2 injuries that night, 2 friends. One was on the roof when it was hit, and the other was below the roof when it was hit, and it was hit with masonry. So yeah, we like to call in medevacs for them, but in our case, it was an ambulance coming from HQ, but they couldn't come because we were still really taking heavy fire. And during all of that, because again, maybe my naivety, I was like, yeah, it'll be grand, just get it done, it'll be fine. And it was the next morning actually when we were in groundhog all night, and groundhog is just in the bunker for the night. And when we went down the next morning and just looked around and saw carnage, I mean, everything was in bits, and it was, there was just silence. Everyone was just kind of wandering around. And then somebody cracked a joke like, oh my God, you should have seen your face when this happened, And then that's the way soldiers are. They break the tension with a bit of humor, with a bit of, and that's what happens. But over the next few days, then, the laughing, the joke, everyone was chatting about it. First it's joking, and then it's,
And then you're trying to process. You
get it out. I think one of the hardest things for soldiers serving overseas, aside from the military activity, which you are trained for, and you have each other and you're all there, but so much happens in a soldier's home life when they're away, and that can be very hard. I mean, I worked with people whose, you know, relationships were breaking down at home while
And
they
you're away and trying to stay on the job, be as focused as you possibly can, and then at home everything is falling apart. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, another guy, like bailiffs were threatening to take the family home from, like, there's all of these massive stresses that are coming from home. But meanwhile, you're in this very tense area, and so people often return home to a very different life to the one that they left. So, I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many openings there for mental health issues and for PTSD to actually set in. And it's not just bombs falling and bullets flying. It's life in general carrying on without you, basically. So
But, yeah, and you're in this what is essentially a dangerous area, and all the various UNIFIL missions. I mean, Chad, where
mm,
they're all dangerous, and it's very easy for Irish people to look at the paper and or look at the news and see people going off and people coming home, but it is actually so terrifying. And that's an amazing thing that you've done for your country. And in fact, one of the themes of the festival is, home. And I think home is very powerful for a soldier, to.
I mean, you go to these places and you see what one of the things that struck me actually was how the girls and women live in these war zones, and what they're, aside from trying to stay alive and raise their families and keep them safe, they're also living as second class citizens in some of these places, and you see the life that they have. I mean, for example, in the camp where we were, there was a few houses, the locals around, and there was a family up the road, and they owned a shop, and they also did laundry for us. Now we could have sent our laundry away to get done for free by the UN. This family charged $6 a bag to do the laundry, but we were their main source of income. So
Yeah, of course.
But then on the other hand, I would often pop into their house and pop into their shop, and just for the chats with the women, with the mother, and they had a little daughter who at the time was about 6 or 7. Beautiful, I loved her. But you go to the house and here's that little girl standing over a metal basin, and she is scrubbing our uniforms by hand. And oh my God, you're there and you want to give them your business because it's their livelihood. And then
yes,
how it's actually happening. And on Christmas Day, we went around to all of the local schools and orphanages. We had Santa was in an APC, and I got to go that year, and I met that little girl. I went to her school, and their school is just riddled and full of holes. It was just, you would not put an animal into this building here in Ireland. So when it came time to go home, like, I was very young then, and I suppose I'd had a very sheltered life up to that point. All I knew was Ireland. All I knew was our way of life. And when I saw all of this and came home, it was like, oh my God, like, we don't know how blessed we are here. We have
so much.
So it's where you're born is just, oh my God, so much comes down to it in life.
I love the way you explain that, and I think it's a huge privilege to see something like that, because most people don't see that. But you've had this amazing chance to see people, and I understand exactly what you're talking about with child labour, because through my work with UNICEF, I'm a UNICEF ambassador, and you go places and you see, children, child-headed families, children whose parents are dead, they're living with their grandparents, they're the main breadwinner, and they are earning the money, and that they shouldn't be earning the money, and in the ideal world they're not. But what you guys were doing is you were taking care of them, and you were being there, and you can bring that message home, and always be able to talk to them and talk to your own. And of course you have your own little, we get onto the personal life briefly, but you have a beautiful little girl yourself, so it's very powerful to be able to bring that home to your own children. I found that, to be able to tell my
students stuck with me from that. I mean, that was years ago, but it's one of the experiences that just stuck with me. And I look at her now, my little girl, she's nearly 3, and I look at how lucky she is. Like, she's at preschool at the moment, which is this beautiful place filled with beautiful people who really care about her. And we're so blessed. To be Irish is just, we're so lucky. We're very proud people. And with regard to the peacekeepers, we have a very, very proud and long tradition. in peace.
Very proud. And there have been some very tragic cases. I mean, where obviously wonderful soldiers have died, and we can never forget that. In your writing, when you sat down to write the book, how did you approach it? I always think it's very interesting how, as a writer, we sit down to write, and you've got this thing in the back of your head. Now, you've discussed this a little bit, how you started to write and it wasn't working for you. I think we all have this idea in the very beginning, in the back of our head, of what we're going to do, and everyone is going to say it's going to be fabulous. And then suddenly you're doing it and you're going, that's not working out. I have to write what's in me. What was your experience of that?
Well, this book was very different for me, in that I had these two characters, and they were just so fully formed instantly in my head. And I started writing without much of a plan. I literally started writing it that same, 5 minutes after I saw that clip, I started. So I didn't have a major plan of, start, middle, and end. No, not at all. I had these characters. I started writing, and the story just kind of developed. Now, for me, I just slap a first draft down on paper. My fingers couldn't work fast enough with this one. It was just there. I wrote and finished it very quickly, actually. But then the first draft, I will always go back to, actually, no, don't like that, or this should go that way, and that's how it works for me. So I was just, the first draft of that, I was happier with that first draft than I've ever been with a first draft of one of my books. So it's just, it was kind of, I just fell in love with the characters, and I fell in love.
You found that place, though. You do. You find the place.
I found my happy place, I think. And this is it. And this is why Lindsey Ryan is by no means done for me.
She'd better not be done.
Absolutely. I love her. I'm well underway with the next Lindsey Ryan adventure. And I have at least one more that is back here ready to come forward.
Stop this. I want Lee Child. I want Jack Reacher. Keep going here now. So
Lindsey Ryan, and you'd get her again.
But who do you read? I know this is always a very hard question, and I won't ask that horrendous question that I'm always asked, which is, what's your favorite book? Is there a worse question than what's your favorite book?
Because how can you pick a favorite book? Genuinely, there's too many. You can't. But what I read very much now depends on my mood and what kind of place I'm in. So if I'm writing thrillers, I prefer to read something completely different then. So, yes. And I juggle books as well. So I'll have something on my Kindle, I'll have a book, and I'll have an audio book in the car as well. So I have everything on the go here.
I like your style.
At the moment, I've just finished the Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell, which was brilliant. It was really good.
Oh my goodness, I knew her a million years ago. We
Really?
were involved. Oh gosh, we were involved literally 100 years ago when the word, the dreaded word, spit in a minute, chicklet, spit was. Yes, I know. We all hate that word. When that word was used, and dreadful, derogatory term. But she and I were both involved in a charity book for a charity called War Child, which was helping children orphaned by war. But beautiful, beautiful woman. And she has changed the way she's written, but very, very clever. I haven't read that yet, though.
It's really good. I had Graham Norton on my audio, Home Stretch.
We're not worthy of Graham.
Loved it. And I'm reading at the moment another Cork-based thriller, actually, Whatever It Takes by Ty Coakley. Now, I'm only getting into it, but really off to a very good start. There's a lot of talent coming out of Cork, actually, in the line of thriller writers. But yeah, so they're the three that I kind of have just got on the go. But then, I have read, I have to say, Family Gift. I loved it, Cathy.
Yeah,
I loved it. I really did.
Okay, we'll stop now. We won't go down there. This is mortification. We're Irish. We have to stop now. Stop. Yeah.
No, we have to. It deserves such a mention because it's just, you write women so well, and your character in that, Freya, like her, or I should say Mildred, that inner critic. We all have her, and I think there's not a person alive who couldn't read that and relate totally relate to it.
The inner voice. I know. People, but it's very easy to put on an act. You see, people don't think I have the inner critic. So I have an inner critic. She's on steroids. Like literally, she's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. She's big arms, very strong. Yeah, I find when I'm writing, I can't write books that are with, it's sort of contemporary women's fiction. I read a lot of thrillers then. So that's why I am just absolute mad thriller writer. It's a huge thing. Coming back to working with other writers and being there for other writers. I think, as you just talked about, this new Cork thriller writer, I think this is a fabulous thing that we do amazingly well in Ireland, in that we support each other. I think it's very powerful. And there's so many industries, or perhaps maybe within other parts of the world, where that isn't done. But I think it's a really big thing about Ireland that, I work on the theory that the pie is infinite. There's,
I mean, look at Ireland on a global scale. Look at the amount of talent that has come out of this country, whether it's artists, poets, actors, actresses, and writers. Like, for such a small place,
sure,
full of talent. And as we said, the pie is infinite. I mean, there's enough books. Nobody's going to read one book in their life and it's going to be mine. They're going to read, another book is going to lead them to mine, perhaps, and mine will lead on to others similar, And I think this is how, and actually, do you know what? It's during this time where we had to go without bookshops there for a while. And it's only then that I realized actually how much I took all that for granted, because you go into a bookshop and you only have to stand there and listen to the conversations that go on. And this is how you learn about books that I've never heard of that. I don't know this. You hear conversations between customers, the staff, they're out of this world. They know everything about
do know everything. They do know everything. Totally.
Everything. So you're listening to them. I actually was in a bookshop there lately, and there was a staff member in there, and he was with a woman customer, and she did not know what she wanted. But he went through every shelf, and she was like, no, don't like that. He literally worked his way around this massive bookshop, and he was able to tell her everything. I mean, I'm loitering behind them, pretending to be reading the cover to see what do I need to be reading. And this is the thing. This is how we figure it all out. I mean, we all had to go online there for a while, and online, they're not going to recommend new books.
Not the same. It's not the same, and it's a useful thing. I mean, I'm a woman who, when I used to go on holidays, I would have, say, 2 suitcases, and there'd be the ones with the clothes, the wrong clothes, obviously, and then there'd be the one with the books. So I think the electronic reader is spectacular for that, and also for total bookaholics, so you can sit there and go, I want that now immediately. But I think the actual physical book and bookshops and libraries. I mean, when I was a kid growing up, I was in 3 libraries. Did you do a lot of libraries? Were you a library person, or?
Yeah, well, yeah, I did. But to be honest with me, I never. My parents have this room in their house that they have it disguised as a utility room, in that there's a tumble dryer in there somewhere, but there are books everywhere. And so I didn't need to go, but I did. I went to the library. I was always a library member, and I loved going in there just for the smell. I loved the smell in the library.
And the old books. Oh my God, old books.
Love it.
It's funny, my sons now, because I have some really, really old, bought in secondhand shops, old copies of the 3 Musketeers, which I remember reading years ago. And the pages are so filmy, and they're just our old Jane Austens, and I just want to pet them and mind them. And the smell, there's just nothing to go. It's the most beautiful gift. And people don't give writers books. I'm just putting this out there now for anyone who knows me. Yeah. People never give me books as presents.
No.
But you do get sent books, which is nice as a writer. You get
sent,
but books.
Yeah. Actually, yes, you're right. Because my publisher, when I signed up with my publisher, within 5 minutes of signing a contract, they're in the UK, and I think the next day the postman was here with a stack of books, and I was like, yes, this is going to be beautiful.
Tell us a little bit about how you got published. Actually,
So my publisher is Bad Press Inc. in the UK, and they're an independent publisher, and they're fairly young. They're a new publisher actually, and they're just fantastic. They have been every bit as enthusiastic about my writing as I have. They really, really have. They're fantastic, and they've put so much into this book as well, and they've pushed it everywhere. They put me. They have a PR guy who put me in touch then with all of these fantastic bloggers and journalists and everything else. And through all that, another publisher in the US, Polis Books, got in touch with us. And they are now going to, with myself and Polis Books and Bad Pressing, we had a nice little chat, and they're now going to be publishing while nobody's watching in the US in April, which I'm delighted with, and it's going to be followed very closely by the next Lindsey Ryan adventure. So
that is fantastic. Look, next stop, and now it is possible to go to the US again, now that it's safe.
Hopefully, wouldn't it? Yes, I'm already, my bags are packed actually. They're ready to go whenever I'm allowed to go.
That's fabulous, and there's a wonderful audience out there for your writing. What advice do you have for people starting out? I know that's
I suppose for me, I kind of took a long road, and it's very, very, very tough to break into, as a new writer. It is hard to break through.
It is, of course it is, yes.
The thing is, you will get rejection, and you will get, criticism, but the thing is to learn from it. It's very easy to be put off very early, but really look at rejection letters, read what they have to say to you, because the ones who give you a, ear and all your grand, forget them, put them aside, leave them go. But you will have some that will tell you why they're saying no, and what they think could be improved. They're gold. They're gold, and take it all on board. Obviously, it's your art, it's your writing. Only make changes that you're comfortable with. But for me, I mean, when I wrote my first book, I thought it was outstanding. I thought it was the best thing anyone's ever going to read. And I started lashing it out. Before I even finished the first draft, I started lashing it out. And some of the letters I got back were scathing, but they're the best ones. And I read them, and actually, by the end of it, even though I was, yeah, but then you say, actually, God Almighty, I'm actually embarrassed I sent it out. You're so right, and you learn so much, and I think that's the attitude to go into it with.
Yes.
Expecting to be, expecting you're not going to get it. Maybe you will. Maybe chances are you might not get it perfectly right first time. But you learn.
I mean, there's nothing we get right perfectly perfect. Like, making a cake, or in fact, in my case, cooking dinner, and I'm doing it years and I still don't get it right, because I think you're so right. I always say to people, keep at it and edit yourself, but don't necessarily give it to your best friend and believe, because your best friend loves you, and your best friend loves you because you're amazing, you're brilliant, and maybe your best friend is not a writer, therefore the fact that you did it at all is fabulous. But be prepared for that, what I call the third eye. I don't know why I call it the third eye, but I suppose we have two eyes. That other person coming in, looking at it, going, you need to work on that a bit. Oh God, people are ringing me here, go away.
It's invaluable, actually, having that third eye, whether it's somebody. For me, I actually found somebody that I know, I'm acquainted with, and it's actually a military person who I know there's no, they don't sugarcoat things. And so if there's a problem, that's what I need. I know him well enough to know that I can trust him with my work. But I also know that he's going to tell me exactly what's wrong. And he does. He's very, very good. But I only found him very, very recently, actually, for this book. My first two, I was relying completely on myself, and I had this thing in my head that nobody can see this because somebody would copy it, or whatever. Oh my God, it's just too good to go anywhere else but me. But that was mine, and that's why it took me so long. I think that's why I was so. I had to rewrite those first two books so many times. But there is so much to learn. So I think if you can find a network of people, that you can trust, and that you can bounce things around with, and that will be honest with you. That's the most important thing. Your own family and friends, as you say, they're too nice. They love you too much. They're not going to.
They're not going to tell you the truth.
No.
How do you structure we'll sort of draw to a close now here, because everyone is eagerly waiting for the next fabulous thing, which is Sarah Baum and Carlo Gebler. Exactly. But your daily life, I think people have this great idea that once you're a published author, that you lie around and you get grapes peeled for you all day. I blame Barbara Cartland for this sort of carry on, that people think that that's what you do. And when they see me in Tesco wearing these scabby dog walking clothes, you know, and looking like death warmed up and
takes all the glamour out of it, doesn't it?
Take all the glamour. Yeah, this is, yes, because like, you know, I sort of did a bit of an effort here today, but from, you know, from the waist down, I'm wearing the dog encrusted leggings. So what's your daily life like now, because you have another job and you have a beautiful little girl, and so you're
my daily life is there is no schedule to it. There's no rhyme or reason whatsoever to my daily life. My writing is it's my love, it's my passion, it's what I love to do. But I need to do it in a time where it's just me, and I need to just be able to sit and relax. And sometimes that's an hour on my lunch break, and that's fine with me. I have a laptop everywhere I go. My laptop comes with me. And so I will, like, as I say, I have a little girl. She doesn't believe in mom sitting down with a laptop. No way. So between her and work and life in general, it is hard. It is hard to get everything done, but you have to make a little bit of time for yourself, and you have to make a little bit of time to squeeze in. And there can be days that go by when I get no writing at all done. But then when I do get the opportunity and I do get to sit down, I love it. Yeah. So it just flows. I'm lucky in the sense that when I start something, it just flows, and I can pick it up. If a week goes by and I haven't seen it, I can pick up fairly quickly again and just go.
So yeah. You come up to my house and do some work for me.
Yeah. Go with that, trust me.
I have days when it's just
chaos everywhere.
when it just doesn't work, and I'm going, what's wrong with me? I'm an idiot. I think that's the thing to tell people is, you know, you have days when you look at what you've done. I'm a moron. I am a moron of the highest order. I'm at the moment I'm working on my 22nd book, and I'm going, why did I ever think I could do this? I just, you know. I know, but you still think and I think that's part of, I always say to people, that's inherently a part of being a writer, because you are unsure, and that's what makes it work. Because I think if you start to think, sure, aren't I great? You're gone.
That's exactly it. I mean, me starting off, fantastic, and it was a disaster. Whereas now I am very critical of myself, and I think we all have those things. We're juggling so much. And then you have this pandemic thrown into the mix as well. And then just, you know, to finish us off. And it's just, life is very, very hard. But you just get on with it, you get done what you need to get done. And, you know, you eventually, for me, I get to the point where I write the end on my last draft, and I'm delighted with it. And then as soon as I send it off to somebody that, you know, somebody that I respect or somebody that I want their book, the minute I send it off, I immediately want to claw it back, because I think, oh my God, it's crap I sent off. You know, I just lose all confidence in that.
And then you're looking at the email every 4 seconds, you know, and if there's a delay or they say something.
After I send it.
Yeah, exactly. Why are they not reading it? It's dreadful. There must be some reason for this.
So we're all very critical of ourselves. I think that's women in general, though. And we tackle so much in one go that, you know, it's bound to get you a little bit.
Any sort of hint? Okay, well, we can't give any hints really on the next novel. Do you even have a name for the next novel? People always ask me, do I have a name for the next novel? And that's not really an important bit to me, because I've now lost my mojo for naming books. So I'm like, God no, it's called book number 22. Stop.
It's very hard actually to come up with a name, isn't it?
It is very difficult.
My new book is called The People Upstairs. But that's subject to change. At the moment, that's what it's called. But I'm excited. I'm really enjoying it. So hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully, look, I absolutely loved your first book. I really did. I think it's just amazing. And I love that we have this. I mean, we have some amazing Irish thriller and crime writers. I love that. I think that's completely wonderful. Go on, the women. And there's some fabulous male writers as well, obviously, because we love them too. They're our friends. But it's something very, very special for me to be able to interview you today and talk to you, even in my chaotic, mad, up all night with sick dog fashion, the glamour of the Cathy Kelly life. It's been a huge pleasure to talk to you, Michelle Dunne. Onwards and upwards. First of all, to say, while nobody is watching, is available in all good bookshops, is available in kennys.ie, is available where all fabulous books are sold, is going to be available in the US. This is amazing. She is a heroine for our times. You're a very wise, clever writer, and you understand the human psyche, and you've seen things, and I think that comes across in your writing, and it's certainly a thrilling read, so I think everyone needs to pick that up. It's been lovely talking to all of you at the Dingle Literary Festival, and I hope we looked at the theme of where we call home, and home has taken a bit of a battering, but we're here together, aren't we? Like we're doing amazing. I think Ireland is doing incredibly. There's great spirit at the moment, isn't there, in the pandemic, of taking care of each other. I love that. You see people on the road, or you're walking down the village, and you're talking to people, and you're smiling at them, and there's a good sense. It's the best of the Irish is coming out, I think. Do you agree? Okay. So next up we have Sarah Baum and Carlo Gebler at 7:30, and thank you so much, Michelle, for your beautiful, beautiful interview and your beautiful words, and onwards and upwards.
Cathy, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
It was fun. It's like an old chat. We should have had, as I was finishing my coffee, we should have had buns. Sheila, where were the buns?